So I'm here with Jeff Marsico from the Kafafian Group, which does a tremendous amount of work with community banks around the country. Jeff is one of the founders of the firm. He specializes in strategy, he specializes in profitability, and does a lot of work in executive development. He teaches at the ABA schools and is a frequent guest speaker at conferences around the country. I'm a fan of his writing. Jeff for Banks is a great resource, and if you're not familiar with it, you ought to sign up for it. But I've asked Jeff to reflect a little bit on what's gone on over the last 4.5 months with community banks. And specifically, I'm interested in two things. The first is, what have they learned as a result of the experience of COVID-19 and all that's associated with it? And the second thing that we'll get into, hopefully, is where are the opportunities? So let's start with the first one, Jeff. What do you think community banks have learned?
Well, I think they learned, let's talk about their people. One thing they learned is that the work from home environment could actually work in financial institutions. Now, we got feedback that there are some personality types and people that aren't necessarily conducive to working at home. And maybe that's where they are in their lives, or like how young their children might be, because there was a lot working against that type of parent right away. Or maybe it's because their personalities, they like to be around people, or they like to be very regimented and they like to be in the office. But I think the larger cohort of employees turned out to be as productive, if not more productive, working from home. So do banks really need large headquarters facilities that they once had, if instead of having only 5% of their workforce working from home, they end up having 25% or 30%? Yeah. It's going to provide tremendous opportunities. So I think that's the first thing that they learn, that working from home can work with people that are in the right positions that are conducive for that, or they have the right environment for them to do that. And it might save money.
And it might also change the kind of people that will work in banks. I mean, if you have people that are able to work from home, that expands the universe.
Think about the urban areas, and somebody spends a long time commuting. Now all of a sudden they recaptured 2 hours of their day.
Yeah. Or
somebody that would like to be a part-time worker but has to be able to make it work. That person could now be in the workforce. So yeah, I think work from home, I think, is going to be something that's here to stay. I hear that, there's a few areas that have hotspots, but 30-40% of the banks are currently working from home, and that's after coming back in some small way.
Yeah. So that's one thing that banks have learned. What else have they learned?
That their customers are adaptable to how they consume banking services. So you had these branch-centric customers, right? And you would have a lot of the executives and branch retail people in the branch say, well, we'll never be able to get this person to use mobile banking or online banking. And now we force them to. And all of a sudden, boom, they're using online and mobile banking just by way of forcing them. So their customers will adapt. And I think that's a lesson that bankers should take to heart.
I thought it was interesting that when banks started requiring people to set appointments for a branch transaction, that seemed to be fine with a lot of customers. And you start thinking about it, that's what professionals do. They set appointments as opposed to living a life where people are just dropping in and changing the direction of their days.
And for years, you would hear the surveys come out that the surveys are still like retail people or in small businesses still like the location of the branch. But then when asked, what do you want the branch for? It's not for efficient transaction processing. They want it to get a loan. They want it to solve problems. They want it for advice. You don't necessarily need 45 lobby hours and 8 additional drive-through hours to deliver the bank to the customer for what they are asking for. You do need more sophisticated people that occupy that branch. So I would say, take a look at your branch network. What do your customers want out of it, and adjust accordingly. If you have to reduce the FTE count in your branches because you don't necessarily need the transaction processing, but you have to increase the sophistication of your branch employees and therefore elevate your compensation that way, isn't that a good trade-off?
I think so. And the other thing that clearly was a focus for a lot of community banks over the last 4 months was the PPP program. And in my view, many community banks actually went to town on the business clients of some of the larger banks who were in some cases stumbling, in other cases bruising their very customers. What was your sense there?
Yeah, I think they were, and it was great that they were accepting non-customers, but we have to go next, right? The reason why those small and mid-sized business customers were so willing to switch from their big bank to the community bank was because the big bank wasn't responsive to them. They were looking at basically grant money that they were going to miss out on. So they would have went anywhere. But you have to be able to show them, take the next step, show them that our bank is as sophisticated as the large bank in terms of technology delivery and personnel, and we care about you. You will have a banker. You will be able to pick up a phone and call somebody and get a response.
So that's part of the opportunity that's in front of community banks. What other opportunities do you see at this stage?
Yeah, I think looking at your branch network, your hours, your lobby hours versus what you need, possibly move into a hub and spoke method. The key there is to get more sophisticated abilities within your branch network to be able to serve the small business customers that surround that branch and the retail customers that surround that branch. That's number one. Number two, I would say look at the occupancy space that you have and see, do you need it all, including branches. The days when you could carry a $20 million, $22 million in deposit branch that really has very little prospects of doubling in size, I think they're over.
Yeah.
Pull a plug on them because the retention rate has been dramatically high, sometimes well into the 90% range for the deposits. So look at your space, your hours, and your locations to reduce occupancy expense and to increase the abilities of your people delivering the bank to customers.
Great. I think those are very valuable insights, and I'm sure as community bankers move ahead, they're going to be thinking about all those things. So, Jeff, thanks for being with us here. I appreciate your involvement today on NedTalks.
Thank you, Ned. Bye-bye.